Assalamu alaikum, everyone. My name is Zishan Rahat Qureshi. I am the founder and CEO of High Achievers League. So, we help students who want to apply for admissions in the United States in masters and PhD. So, we help them get admissions and we also help them in attaining scholarships and funding. So, today we have with us Mr. Faraz Hussain, worked in the United States Education Foundation in Pakistan for more than 10 years. He was a senior advisor there, and he used to take care of the Fulbright outreach, test prep, and also visas. So, Faraz, over to you. You can start with the discussion.
Okay, thank you so much, Zishan sir, for having me. Hi, everyone. So, as Zishan mentioned, I've been working, well, I had worked with US Education Foundation for around 12 years. And my expertise was on, graduate advising as well as visas because I've worked very closely, in fact, with diplomats, visa chief, as well as deputy visa chiefs, as well as visa officers. So I have a pretty sound knowledge regarding J1 visa, regarding F1 visa, F2 visa, and J2 visa. So I can guide students on these, how to get student visas for studies in the US, be it for bachelor's, master's, or PhD. So I would like to, start with, sharing some information like what are the requirements, what uh, what is required for an applicant to kind of demonstrate in order to get the student visa. So first of all, when a student is applying for the student visa, be it J1, J2, a student should demonstrate that he is not a potential immigrant to US. So they want to make sure that the student or any person who's applying to US for the non-immigrant visa, he or she should not be a potential immigrant. That's number one. And number two requirement is that he or she should not be a threat to a US national security. These are two very important requirements, and you won't be able to find it and you won't be able to hear it from anybody. But since I have worked very closely with the visa officers, with the visa chiefs, as well as with with top diplomats working for US mission in Pakistan, I know that these are the two fundamental things required in order to get the visa. So before you even get to the window for the student visa, the system kind of ensures that you are not a potential immigrant, A, and B, that you are not a national security threat to US national security. So these are two very important requirements, and then comes these regular requirements which you can see it on the internet, which you can when you are on the YouTube channel and you are watching videos about F1 visas, you can hear that these are the requirements. These are the second most important requirements, and these are that the applicant must demonstrate that he or she is a bona fide student and the intention is to study. So that is very important, that if you're applying for the student visa, your intention is to study. You should not be, you should be able to demonstrate in front of the officer that you are intending to study in the US. You are not intending to work in the US. And then you are a potential, you are not a you are a bona fide student. You are not a student who is kind of not good in studies and going to US and not going to study in the US. So you should be able to demonstrate in front of the visa officer that your intention is to study, A, and you are a bona fide student. So that's number one clause. And then the second clause says that you should have funding available. So either you should have someone is sponsoring you, uh, from your family, or if you have fund yourself, if you have funds available in your account, you can fund yourself. Then that is going to be enough. So funding is also a fundamental thing in order to get the student visa. The number one is that you should be able to demonstrate that you are a potential student and your intention is study, and then comes funding. You should be able to demonstrate that you have funding available. If a US school is sponsoring you, if you're getting funding from a US university or a college or from any other source, then you should have the details available that this particular organization, this gentleman is going to sponsor you. So that's number two. And then comes the third part, and this is also very important, but it's the most challenging part because there are no direct questions. And the third clause says that an applicant must demonstrate that he or she should have enough social economic ties that will compel him or her to come back to Pakistan. That is very important. And again, there are no straightforward questions. Visa officer are not going to ask you that, do you have, are you planning to come back to Pakistan? So they have a certain kind of, every officer has certain kind of questions they ask students in order to get this justified. That, student must justify that they have enough economic and social ties with their home country that they will come back to Pakistan. So these are the general requirements in order to get the student visa. If you're applying from Karachi, from Islamabad, from any other part of the world, these are the requirement that are the general requirement that's that you should be able to demonstrate in front of the visa officer. So these are these are the important kind of things which I wanted to highlight. If you have any further questions, I'll be more than happy to answer. Moreover, you can work with us. We guide students, as Ishan Saab mentioned, that High Achievers League guides students on every part of the application, be it the application to US universities for masters and PhD, be it the online application, be it writing essays, in everything. So and including the visa. So if you have any further question, I'll be more than happy to guide you on the Zoom call right now. Otherwise, you can reach out to Zishan Saab for further information about student visa. So Zishan Saab, this is what I wanted to say in front of the audience. So let's have Q&A regarding student
Okay,
visas.
so so as far as I've understood for us, so the main things that you mentioned are that when a student is applying for US visa, so they look at the ties, the social ties with Pakistan. They look at the amount of funding that they have, so that funding can come either from the student, from their parents, or from maybe funding from the university in the form of a scholarship or a grant. And the third thing is that the student needs to be a bona fide student, a genuine student getting admission in a genuine program in a genuine university. Is that correct?
Yes.
All right.
So Zishan Saab,
Okay. Ji.
I would like to also add that there are around 4,700 plus universities in the US. There are A category universities, there are B category universities, and there are C category universities. So US government wants students to come and study in a quality institution, not in a Tom, Dick, and Harry student. So that's why that's very important that if you will be able to get into a good school, then the bar you will have less chances of getting the refusal if you are going into the top school.
Okay, so connected to that, so when we help students at High Achievers League, basically, yes, we know that there are more than 4,700 universities in the US, but we try our best to place students in the best fit institutions where there is good funding for those students. So, but then, there are a number of consultants out there in the market who are guiding or unfortunately sometimes misguiding students regarding admissions, regarding the visas. It's the same 20, 30 universities where they send the students, and then in some of those universities, the historical data is not in the favor of the student, as some of the students had slipped there. So do you have any advice regarding what kind of institutions they should target, and what kind of consultants should these students avoid?
I think it's a very good question because because I'm from Karachi, I know there are consultants available everywhere in Karachi, and I know you are from Lahore, so consultants are, because these are two big cities in Pakistan. Consultants are everywhere, and since I've worked in the US mission for 12 years, I know the consultant business is to earn money. Their target is not to kind of place students into a good university or into a best fit program, but their target is to get money out of the students. So they have these linkages with the universities. They have, like as you mentioned, there are 30 institutions or maybe 20, 25 institutions they have in their list of what they do. They just tell students that these are the top 20 universities in the US, top 30 universities in the US, and I would like to help you get into those. and maybe I can get you some kind of waiver, I can get your TOEFL waived, and I can get you $5,000 scholarship. So this is their way to kind of helping students, but actually they're not helping students. They are just getting, because they have the partnership with this with the universities, that if they place students into their particular university, they will get some kind of fees, maybe $1,000 or $1,200 or $1,500. So these consultants, they charge students as well as the universities. So they get money from the students by placing them into these 30 universities, and then they get money from these universities by placing a Pakistani students to these universities. So their ultimate goal is not to get you into a best fit program. Their ultimate goal is to get you in the US and earn money. So they are not fully aware of the holistic approach of US universities. They are not aware of the visa process. That's why I usually recommend students to go to a credible organization like Higher Achievers League, because A, that you have been to US, you have studied in the US, and B, that you have worked for US mission closely, and you know that you are not telling students that these are the best universities. You're telling students that these are the options for you. You should apply to these options. Okay, so I hope that I answered your question.
Yes, thank you, Faraz. So the participants, if anyone has any question, there's a chat box, so you can type the answers and your questions in the chat box. Besides that, I have also typed our website address, which is www.haleague.com, the email address info@haleague.com, and WhatsApp number is 0321 412 9411. You can find that in the chat box. So in the meantime, that students type questions, I have another question for you, Faraz. So if a student is married and if the student's spouse wants to apply for the visa as well, so what kind of a visa is that, and what's the process to apply for that?
So it's pretty simple. It's called F2 visa. If a student is going on student visa, student visa is generally, they also consider it J1 visa as student, but it's actually an exchange visa. Typically, an F visa is called a typical student visa, where you have to study in the US, and then you have option to also work in the US. With J1, you cannot work in the US. You have to come back to Pakistan. So with F1 visa, you can take your spouse along, and your spouse will be on J2 visa. So when you're applying, if you're already married, you can let your international student office know that I want to bring my wife as well as my dependent, or I want to bring my husband along with the dependents. So what they will do, they will send you an I-20 which has information about your dependent, so you can apply visa accordingly. Definitely you can take your family along, but I would
Oh,
recommend not taking them in the first semester, going there, because it's not easy in the US to go and just study, because you have to kind of, because education system in Pakistan is different than the US. And then you are going to a foreign country, and you are going to a different system. So go get yourself self acclimatized, get yourself aware of the situation of your academic as well as of your cultural situation, and then you can request your family to kind of come.
okay. Okay, thank you. We have a question from Faik Ali. He's saying, what does it mean not to be a potential immigrant? So what does that exactly mean?
So this visa, it's a student visa. So US government, the way the law has written, they have to assume, the visa officer has to assume that this is the way they have written the law, that the officer who is taking your interview, officer has to assume that you are a potential immigrant, but the the applicant has to prove otherwise, that not you are not a potential immigrant, you are just going there to study, and after studying you will come back to your home country. So potential immigrant is that US government does not want students, or does not want any other citizen of other countries to come and live in the US. If you want to go and study in the US, why not? There are around a million international students studying in the US. US is by far the premier choice for international student, but they don't want anyone who's coming to US to kind of live and settle in the US. They want student to go back to their home country. So that's why it's very, very important that you have to show your intent that you will be going back to your home country after completing the education. By the way, the beauty of US is that if you are going in STEM field, science, technology, engineering, or mathematics. They will let you work after graduation. They will let you work for 3 years. In those 3 years, if you get a sponsor who is willing to sponsor your visa from student visa to a work visa, you can get your visa changed from F1 to H1B, and then you can become a green card holder and then a US citizen. The system is there, by the way. But right while applying for the student visa, you have to show the intent that you are coming back. They know they have the system in place in the US, that and by the way, they kind of market that, because US is a huge market. They are kind of, they are 23% of the whole economy. So the market is very big. They can, accommodate international student in terms of putting them in different fields. The system is there, but while applying, this is the law. While applying, you have to show the intent that you are going to come back.
Okay, we have a question from Jahangir. He is saying how much amount in bank should one have when one goes for the visa interview?
Okay, okay, that's a very relevant question, but there's no right amount. There's no amount I can share. Why? Because for example, there are schools in the US. There are community colleges which can give you admission. There are community college where the admission fees or the yearly cost is around $7,000 or maybe $8,000. So, and there are universities where annual tuition is around $70,000 to $80,000. So the law says that an applicant must have uh, first year fee and the rest of year's plan. So you should have, for example, if your annual tuition, if your annual expense in the US, according to your I-20 and according to the university estimate, if your annual expense is, for example, $25,000, so you should have anything above $25,000. But you should have a plan for the next year. Law says that you don't have to have 4 years if you're going for a bachelor's or 2 years if you're going for master's. You don't have to have full funding available. You should have first year funding, and then the plan for the second year, as well as for the, if you're going for PhD, then the plan for 4 years. Usually PhDs are funded, but if you're not getting into a fully funded PhD program, then you should have a plan for second or third year.
Okay, so Faraz, does this mean that if the annual tuition cost is, let's say, $25,000, and the student has been offered a funding of $20,000, so now he needs to show just $5,000 in his account when he goes for the interview?
That's true. Yes.
Okay. All right. Okay. Kenza asks, how can we get PhD scholarship for the USA? So she wants to know the process, like generally, how can one get that kind of funding?
Okay. So Kinza, since this program is purely based on F1 visas, but I can definitely add that PhD in the US is. By the way, let me ask Zishan Saab, is it okay if I talk about PhD program?
Yes, yes, sure.
Okay. Okay. PhD program in the US is generally funded. It's harder to get into a PhD program than getting the funding. Unlike masters, in masters, getting the funding is also difficult, as well as getting into a master's program. But in the PhD, getting into the program is more difficult than getting the funding. So there are around 1,000 universities that can offer PhD in the US. By the way, there are 4,700 plus universities that can give you bachelor's, master's, or PhD, but there are 1,000 universities that can give you admission in the PhD program. So for PhD program, funding lies with the professors, with the department. If you have and if you have strong application, you have good chances of getting into a PhD program A and then getting the funding. So my suggestion is that right now focus on matchmaking, like you do for, if you're looking for a spouse, you do matchmaking. Same is the case with US universities. uh, this is by far the most challenging part and the most efficient part, that instead of going for funding, go for the program. If you find the relevant program based on what you have done, what you are doing, and what you want to do in 5 years, 7 years down the lane, if you find a right match, if you find like around 5 to 7 program that is kind of right fit for you, apply and then seek for funding. So that's the way to go about it. If you find the right match, and how you can how you can place your application, you should keep that in mind, that as I mentioned before, that there are around 1 million international students studying in the US. Everyone outside of the US is trying to get into a top school. Everyone is trying to get some kind of funding. So the competition is tough, and they have limited funding. It's not that they have funding for everyone. No, competition is tough. But if you do good matchmaking, if you find a right fit program, and that's the beauty of US education, that all you cannot find you cannot find two similar programs. All the program in the US are different. All the universities in the US is different. They have their own individual personality. So find a right fit program and then reach out to the department and reach out to the professor. This is the way to kind of apply for funding. Moreover, the general requirement for the PhD program is you should have 18 years of education. In some cases, university can give you admission if you have just a bachelor's, because some university waive off the master's requirement. But most of the universities, they require master's program, like 18 years of education in order to get into the PhD program. So 18 years of education is required. Then some university require GRE. Now after the COVID, GRE requirement is kind of waived, but some universities still require GRE. And then recommendation letters, essay, and then research. Research is very important, as well as publications. These are the two very important for the PhD program. If you have good research, if you have good publications in local as well as international, if the publication has good impact value, you have good chances of getting into a top school and getting some kind of funding. I hope I answered that question.
Okay, yes, thank you. Okay, so Ali Zafar is asking how important is the GRE in getting scholarships or funding?
Right now, after the COVID, GRE is kind of 50-50. Majority of the universities, they say that it's optional. Some are saying right now that, you don't need to, we are not going to consider GRE. So first, try to come up with a list of universities. So that's why it's very important that, you seek guidance right from the start. If you're planning to apply for 2023, reach out to Zishan Saab, High Achievers League, to get guidance. So first shortlist schools and then try to fulfill the requirements. Don't fulfill the requirements before shortlisting schools. So it's very important that you have 10 schools. If you're looking for funding, you should apply to 10 schools. If you're not looking for funding, then you should apply to 6 schools. You should apply, if you're looking for funding, you should apply to around 7 dream schools, 7 highly competitive schools, because this is where the scholarship lies. Scholarship lies only with a school which are very competitive. A scholarship, these Tom, Dick, and Harry schools, they won't give you scholarship. Okay? So apply early right now, shortlist schools, and then start meeting the requirements. Majority of the universities I now see, they are not requiring GRE.
Okay, so also for us, I think it depends on the programs. For example, I have observed this that in economics, many schools require GRE, but in chemistry, right now, not many schools are requiring GRE. So it also depends on the program that the students are applying to. What do you think?
Yes, you are absolutely right. GRE is also very important. Maybe because of COVID, because you can say the students were facing issues with respect to appearing for the GRE examination. That's why some school kind of waived off. But with the passage of time, GRE is going to come back again. I see that coming.
Oh, okay. Okay, so Ijaz Khan is asking that he applied for SUSI program. I guess this is the embassies, US embassies program. So he's in BBA fifth semester. So he's asking, is the program, is it going to be beneficial for him?
I think SUSI program is for, I guess, as far as I remember, SUSI program is for females.
Women, yeah, right. That's what I was thinking.
Yeah. So I don't think so. It's for males.
All right, so he can't apply there. So maybe he was thinking of applying there, but he can't.
So
All
apply. There are
right.
multiple programs. There are multiple programs. A Fulbright scholarship is coming up next year. There are independent scholarship. There are, I think I didn't mention. U.S. government spent around $600 billion on education. It's the overall portfolio of their education, not for masters, PhD, is the overall. So U.S. government spent a lot on education. So if you have a quality application, you have good chances of getting some kind of funding.
Okay, so Faikali is saying, does a student with BS computer science background has to take the GRE test?
A student with BS background?
BS computer sciences.
It varies, from school to school, from program to program. Right now, I think, as I mentioned before, that instead of appearing for the GRE, on is instead of thinking of not appearing for the GRE, shortlist schools and then meet the requirements.
All right, makes sense. Okay, so this is a general question that we are being asked a lot. Okay, what's the rejection ratio? Because in terms of the rejection of the US visa, a lot of students hear this a lot that, there is a lot of rejection, don't apply for the US. So, what is your experience about rejection and acceptance?
I think it's more than the acceptance than the rejection. More than 50% acceptances. I know. As I mentioned, that I've worked very closely with the visa section on J1 and J2 visas. It's more acceptances than rejections. And by the way, the majority of the rejections were based on these consultants because they were telling students the wrong things. That students applying to a remote school in Moorhead, Minnesota, and telling the visa officer that I've applied to this program because it's one of the best program, and it is actually not. And also it has to do something with the documentation. We usually visa officers, they don't check the documents. 90% they don't check their documents. It's the story that matters the most. It's how you present yourself, how persuasive you are. uh, but we what as a Pakistani, what we do, and this is what we are famous for, in using fake documents. I know they in Pakistan they have the fraudulent department just for this, to kind of check if the degrees are not fake, if the statements are not fake. So what we usually produce these fake documents while applying for the visa, and that's why you see this large kind of number of rejections. It's because of us, not because of them. They have the same procedure all over the world. You are entitled, according to the law, student is entitled, since you're paying $160, you are entitled to get the student visa. You make the case for rejection. Student make the case for rejection.
So, and then for us, you studied from University of Chicago. I studied from University of Texas, Darlington. So
Yeah,
we got our visas the first time, right? So this means that if the
yeah.
students are genuine, the school is genuine, the
Mhm.
program is genuine, the story is genuine, then you will get a visa.
Mhm.
Chances
And
are you
maybe
will get
maybe
a visa.
Zishan, maybe Zishan Saab, there are few cases I know of of some errors, but if you reapply, if you seek help with an expert like as Zishan Saab's organization, then you have good chances. See, you have to present your case accordingly. In most of the cases, visa, this whole exercise is pretty intimidating. Number one, applying for the visa, filling the DS-160 form, then paying the $160 fees, and then going back to that US Travel Doc website, getting the interview date, and then going for the interview, and then you will see a Gora, sitting in front of you. There is a glass wall in front of you, and you think your accent is not right, and then will you be able to will the Gora will be able to hear you properly or not? So these are things which you think, which while applying you think that this is very intimidating. But if you kind of if you plan accordingly, if you prepare yourself accordingly, I think you will be able to do good. That's why the help is there.
So for us, how soon can one apply after rejection?
Right away. But he or she should have a strong case, like he or she should defend his case, that why he or she is applying again. What is the point?
Okay,
Again,
so
see,
unless there is a
Zishan
change in
Saab,
the story, yeah.
there are two very important things. If the officer think that you are a potential immigrant, if your family in the US is more than the family in Pakistan, if you have economic ties in the US more than the Pakistan, then you will get the rejection. If you are a threat to national security, even if you apply 50 times, you will not get the visa. So these are two very important requirements. And then comes your intention. You were not able to express your intention. You were not able to express or present that you are a bona fide student, and you were not able to express that who's going to fund you ties with Pakistan. I think you can do that. It's easy. You can defend that going for the next interview.
Okay, so Ali Zafar is asking, is it compulsory to come back to home country after getting the studies through scholarship or without scholarship when you're on a student visa in USA? So I think you can briefly explain Fulbright, the rule in the Fulbright about coming back, and versus when you are applying directly in the US.
I would say that you should come back to Pakistan because Pakistan need experts. That is very, very important. We are facing a lot of brain drain issues in Pakistan. So we want experts because US is the premier destination to study in the US. So you should come back. You should plan to come back. Again, that's your choice. So the system is there. If, as I mentioned before, that as soon as you graduate, if you are going for a STEM degree, science, technology, engineering, and mathematics, and you get this designation while applying for the program. So if you're going for STEM field, US government will let you work for 3 years. In those 3 years, if you get a sponsor, and majority of the STEM majors, they do. If you get a sponsor, you can get your visa changed from student visa to H1B visa. If not, by hard luck, if you won't be able to get your visa change, you can go back and you can start doing your masters as long as you are maintaining your student visa status. And what do I mean by student visa status? When you have a, for example, when you have a 2 or 3 years visa, master's visa, you have completed a master's. When you enter US while going for the first time or while going for the second time, when you are entering US, your visa become irrelevant. They will give you a stamp. That stamp says that you are in the US until you are maintaining the status, student visa status. So student visa status is that if you are going for full-time studies, as long as you're doing triple masters, triple PhDs, you are in status. So you have to come back. If you decide to leave education and come back, then you have to leave US. Otherwise, if you are studying, if you're maintaining full-time student status, you can study for 20 years in the US, no issue. Okay, but the system is there for you to become a US citizen.
Okay, so I'm sorry, Ali Zar. I've been pronouncing your name as Ali Zafar, so you are Ali Zar. Okay, so so Ijaz Khan is saying for MS Finance in US, can we get scholarship? So Ijaz, as mentioned by Faraz, so basically there are more than 4,700 universities in the US. There is a lot of funding and scholarship available in every field. So I'll just brief you about the process that we use when students come to us for help. So the first thing that we do is to study the profile of the student. Then we, along with the student, shortlist universities and programs that we think are the best fit for the student. Then we collect the document requirements for each of the programs that have been shortlisted, like how much is the IELTS required, which tests are required, how much is the application fee, and then how much funding is available, things like that. Then after that, the student starts to collect the documents, and if they want to get preparation help for GRE or IELTS with us, we make them do that. Then the students, they start filling up the applications, and we help them fill the applications wherever they need help. Then in terms of the essays, like the statement of purpose or the personal statement, we need first drafts from the students, and then we check if the story seems to be good or if it needs to be changed. So whatever help they need with the editing, we do that. Then the next step is that the students need recommendation letters from the teachers. So generally, when you're filling up the application, you write the names and emails of the recommenders. An email goes from the university to the recommender with a link. The recommender opens up that link, fills up your recommendation, and then submits the recommendation directly. And then you apply for admission. So once you get an admission offer from one of the universities applied to, then we also help the students with the visa process, like how you need to apply for the visa, what documents you would be needing, and we also help with a visa interview, preparing for the visa mock interview, etc. So all these things are involved. So Kinza also answered a similar question, so I hope that has also been answered. Okay. So one question from my side for us. So if a student has a B1, B2 visa, which means that they are already in the US on a tourist visa, and they've got an offer in the meanwhile from a US university. So can they get their visa converted from B1, B2 into F1 while being in the US, or will they have to come back to Pakistan?
No, they can get it done. They have to either have their expertise to kind of get it filled online or get it submitted. by themselves, or they have to get a lawyer to kind of do that. So they can do it, but it's kind of risky, because when you travel back to home country, you can face issues in going back to US again. So I would suggest, because when you're applying for B1 B2 visa, you are showing intent that you are going for a particular visit, and while staying in the US, you have changed your mind, and now you have applied to a US university and you want your visa changed. So that's kind of, it's kind of conflicting. So that's why you can do that. The system is there. The law gives you option, but it's better to come back and apply for the student visa.
Another mistake that I would like to point out is that generally students, if they want to go for the student visa, so sometimes maybe if a consultant tells them to do so, or if they do that because they want to, so what some people would do, that they would apply for the B1, B2 visa just to test their luck. So I would say never do that. If you are genuine, if you are a genuine student and you want to go there as a student, then don't destroy your chances by applying for a tourist visa before that.
And it's
Okay.
harder to get the B1 B2 visa than student visa, because for B1 B2 visa you have to also show that you are a traveler, you have been traveling all over the world. And that's how the US mindset is. They don't want a fresh passport, they want a passport with different visit visas, like you should have been to Middle East, to Far East, to Europe, and then you're applying for a visit visa to US. And unlike student visa you can apply with a fresh passport,
So how long does
and
it
you should
take to get the interview date for the student visa?
within a month.
Okay, so that's a lot shorter than a B1, B2 visa, right?
Yes, yes, and you have now two options, Karachi and in Islamabad, where these council sections are. There is an embassy, there's a consulate in Lahore too, but as well as in Peshawar, but they don't have the consular section. So for consular section, you have to be either in Karachi or in Islamabad.
Okay, and do you have any idea how much is the cost for applying for a student visa in the US?
$160, $160, and then you have to pay the service fees. That's $350.
Okay, so round about $500, right?
$500. So service fees is after you have received I-20. So when you apply to a US university, they will give you admission offer, and then the admission office send your application to International Student Office. They give or they issue the I-20, and they they basically issue the I-20 on behalf of the US government. So I-20 is basically a US government document. So on that I-20 you can apply for the student visa. So generally speaking, if you're applying for 2023 fall right now, so if you're submitting application right now, so you should expect to get your I-20 somewhere around April, May, or June. If you have your I-20 by April, May, or June, you should apply as soon as you receive I-20, pay the service fee, pay the US visa application fee, fill the DS-160 form, and then apply for the student visa altogether. So yes, maybe after getting the I-20, you have to pay the service fee. Before that, you just have to pay the student application fee, US university's fee.
Okay, all right. So Faik is asking about the names of scholarships. So Faik, there are no names for scholarships. So we are talking about the scholarships that are being offered by the universities themselves to potential students. So don't mix this with the Fulbright scholarship or with the Erasmus Mundus, etc. So Fulbright scholarship is a US government scholarship. When you apply for the Fulbright scholarship, you do not apply directly to universities. You only apply to the Fulbright, and then if you get selected, then the Fulbright organization in Pakistan, they fit you with a particular university. But when you apply directly to universities, then you, as Faraz mentioned, you shortlist different universities. We help students do that. And then you apply in each of those universities and ask for funding from those universities. So, and also, if you get admission and funding in this way by applying directly in universities, then you don't need to come back if you get a job offer in the US, or if you want to pursue further education in the US. All right. So Ijaz Khan says any website for US scholarships. So So Ijaz, if you want to check the Fulbright program, you can just type Fulbright in Google, and there you'll have access to their website. So for us, if someone wants to find information, general information about the scholarships in the US, is there any website that they can go to?
Unfortunately, there are websites, but these are not comprehensive websites. So the best way to find out about the scholarship is to, look for the university's website. And generally speaking, for undergrad, maybe you can say that you can find schools name that these are the schools that give you funding. But for masters and for PhD, you have to first shortlist, because most of the schools offer funding for masters and PhD. Funding lies not with the schools, or what should I say, funding lies with the application profile. If you have a strong application, you will be able to get some kind of funding.
Right. And that's perfectly said. So, okay, so do we have any other question? So, in the meanwhile, just let me tell you that the students that we assist in applying, so we have an experience of more than 10 years. We have historical data. We have certain software available that we use in order to match students with the best fit universities. So we do have those advantages. Otherwise, as Faraz said, the only thing that can be done is to go on Google and find universities. But then there are a lot of universities with a lot of funding available. And since we are also in touch with different universities and their programs, so we do periodically get that information, which new scholarships are available from different programs and universities. Okay, so I guess with that, we have covered mostly what we wanted to cover, and we have also answered the questions. So, um, thank you so much, Faraz, for being with us here today. If you want to say any parting words, please go ahead, and then we can close the session.
Thank you, Zishansa, for the opportunity. Always available to support education as well as High Achievers League. So I just wanted to add that, if you want to go and apply for the Masters and PhD program in the US, I think the best way to go about is to reach out and seek guidance from Zishan Saab as well as from High Achievers League. So thank you so much for the opportunity, and I wish you all good luck. Thank you, Zishan Saab.
Okay, thank you so much, everyone. Allah Hafiz.
Allah Hafiz.